Rocky Top Insider presents the RTI Lowdown with Bob Baskerville and Chris Lowe.
Welcome. It is another episode of the RTI Lowdown. I'm Bob Baskerville, joined as always by my friend and colleague, guy's kind of a big deal, Chris Lowe from On3 Sports. Appreciate him being here and appreciate you listening, watching, however you choose to consume our show. I would tell you we're available on the Rocky Top Insider YouTube channel. You can find us there. And if you are watching us, please like and subscribe. And then also maybe you're listening to us as a podcast, which is perfectly fine. Just make sure that you also, download us there as one of your regular go-tos. We are available wherever you listen to your podcasts. So we're excited to get to it. Another week passes. And man, I got to tell you, Chris, there was a lot here. So, but first, how you doing?
Doing great, man. It has been eventful on a lot of different fronts, and not just the Tennessee front, but it's been it's that time of year when you got baseball, Major League Baseball, you got college football swinging into full gear, and it's a fun time of the year. And even Bob, I'll say this, a little bit of a nip in the air tonight.
I love it. Yes, I love it. I was just out running an errand before I came in for the recording, and yeah, man, it's a little windy and it feels like fall. It's my favorite time of the year. I got to say, I love that season change. So bring it on. Let's get to it. Topic A today. Look, we teed this up last week. We talked about the third Saturday in October. Well, it turns out that this edition of the third Saturday in October was hardly memorable, at least from a highs perspective. A lot of adversity, potential and real adversity dominated this weekend, and we're going to talk about both of them. We're definitely going to talk about the football game from Saturday night, which did not go as planned. Some tough realities I think we got to talk about there, and we're going to do it. But before we get to that, the other scenario of adversity that I mentioned, as I said, potential. We sure hope it is, at least in Vol Nation, that it's just potential and doesn't become real. But that's regarding Tony Vitello, because that broke yesterday, news that what we had heard before a couple weeks ago of the prospect of Tony V maybe making the jump to Major League Baseball with the San Francisco Giants. We thought, I think there's, doesn't feel like there's too much smoke there. Well, turns out there actually was. And, this is very, very fluid. Chris, I know you've been, working your back channels on this one too. And we're going to talk more about it today with Chris Burke, VFL and ESPN college baseball analyst. But maybe before we get into the football, you want to give an update on anything you're hearing at the moment as it relates to Tony?
I think we're sort of in a waiting period, honestly, Bob. And I know Tony told several people last night that he wanted to sleep on it, wanted to think some more about it. Tennessee did practice today, and Tony was at practice. Sort of business as usual, throwing, hitting, doing what he always does. There wasn't any real discussion about it with him and his team. I think a couple, when things like this happen, when a coach is in discussions or contract negotiations or thinking about a job, there are all sorts of versions of that story that get out. And certainly that's been my experience in covering these jobs in these types of searches. What I can tell you about Tony Vitello is there have been conversations with the Giants now for a while. They've been interested. He's certainly interested. What I also can tell you, as we're taping this right now, he hasn't agreed to anything. There have been some reports. I've seen some things out there where he told his team he was gone. He held a meeting in the locker room, and one of the players said he was gone. That didn't happen. What happened is 2 days ago, he pulled the team out in the outfield. I think really before the report hit, the initial one, or just as it was about to hit, and said, listen, guys, there's going to be something coming out there, a report about me leaving. What I can tell you is don't believe everything you read. If anything happens, if I do leave, you're going to hear it from me first. And that was pretty much the end of it. I don't know how much Tony or Danny White have talked, honestly, in the last day or so. He has talked to people that he's close to, some of those people in and around the program, but he's really played it pretty close to the vest. And I think he's trying to decide what he's going to do. I've talked to people that again, are close to him to feel like that their gut was that he was probably going to leave. But the longer this goes on, we'll see. As I said, he was at practice today. And from people who were there, it was, it wasn't like, all right, this was the swan song. Hey, I'm out of here. It was just Tony being Tony. And that's sort of the way he goes about his business and his life.
Yeah.
And say we're going to know something here pretty shortly, Bob, about whether he's still going to stay on as Tennessee's baseball coach or become a pioneer of sorts, be the first college baseball coach who went on to be a major league manager. That doesn't happen. You never see that happen, which again tells you about what the people at the highest level of baseball think about Tony Vitello.
Yeah. Yeah, the one I was thinking about, and I know it's happened in the past in this particular league, but we almost saw something like this, about a year and a half ago when Danny Hurley was entertaining maybe becoming the coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. And in the past, we know Patino, Calipari, they've made that jump too. But for baseball, yeah, pretty unprecedented. And it's hard to begrudge Tony anything that he wants to choose to do, just given the, all that he's brought to the university. I think it'll be bittersweet if he does go, but I mean, it is an opportunity that probably doesn't come along very often, if at all. So I get the whole concept of him being enamored with taking that job. So hopefully we'll see. I've been hearing behind the scenes. I'm sure you have too. I know there's a lot of, friends of the athletic department and boosters and others who are influential, I think, that are trying to, get involved and advise the best they can. So it's getting a little crazy in that regard. So hopefully we'll get some sort of resolution here pretty soon. And like I said, we're going to talk more about that a little later in the show when Chris Burke joins us. It'll be interesting to hear what Burke has to say about this. And mostly what I'd be interested in at that point, Chris, is if he does go, what Chris thinks are the next steps for the program in terms of a successor and all those things. So it should be good stuff. Let's talk a little football though. Kind of have to, man. We had the game Saturday night. We all knew the stakes of the game and the recent history of the rivalry with Tennessee and Alabama. We're well aware of the fact that Tennessee had won 2 of the last 3 matchups with the Tide, but it's also a fact that Tennessee hasn't won in Tuscaloosa since 2003. And it's also a fact that winning big road games have not been synonymous with Josh Heupel teams. And factor in also, Alabama has been white hot since their season opening loss to Florida State. So what we knew, Chris, is it was going to take a special game from the Vols to come away with a road win, and at the very least a really clean and efficient game. So about that, didn't quite happen that way.
I always look at coaches when I'm assessing coaches and their tenures based on this, Bob. What are they doing, what are they not doing that hasn't been done in the past? How have they elevated the program, or have they raised expectations, for instance? I do think that Josh Heupel in a lot of ways has elevated the program. Expectations have always been high for Tennessee, but there's always 3 or 4 things you got to do at Tennessee. And you got to beat Bama and Florida and Georgia as much as they beat you. You don't want to lose to Kentucky and Vandy. And you want to win big games. You certainly want to be able to win those games that are the marquee games against nationally ranked teams. And Josh has made so many strides in those areas. But as I've talked to people today, longtime Tennessee fans, and even people in the national media about this program and where it is, I think the frustration is that you're right. They have not been able to bring themselves or deliver in big road games against the best teams they played on their schedule. And that's continued to plague this football program. And that's one of those sort of next hurdles and next steps that Tennessee's got to get over. If they're going to get to being a team that has a chance to make some real noise in the playoff. They got there last year, but we're flattened. I mean, and listen, Ohio State beat up on a lot of people toward the end of the season, but there was another one of those games away from home, as you pointed out, that Tennessee just did not play its A game. We've seen Tennessee's A game, in a lot of situations. Certainly they've been just lights out at home. But I know I'm repeating myself, but if they're going to sort of climb to that next level, you got to play that way on the road against your best teams. And this program has not been able to do that.
Yeah, somebody shared with me on social media. This is something I found very interesting, and that is, if you go back to just a little over a year ago, October 5th, 2024, at that moment in time, the Vols were ranked number 4 nationally. Okay, since that time, 15 games have passed if you include last season's remainder of the regular season, the playoff game against Ohio State, and then where we are this season. Since that time, the Vols have gone 10-5, but they've gone 1-4 versus ranked teams, and they've gone 2-4 on the road. Also 1-4 as underdogs. And so to me, that's the part, and it kind of reinforces what you were just saying, Chris. It's like, to me, we're very much, at least on paper, in the mix still for a college football playoff spot. But it's tough to associate that type of performance with a college football playoff contender, meaning even if you get to that field of 12, it might be one and done. I just think that is the hurdle that remains for this team, right?
Yeah, no, it is. And listen, Josh Heupel knows that as well as anybody. And I think the more you talk about stuff like this, you can't get over this hurdle. It's back during the 90s when Tennessee was whipping up on everybody, but they couldn't beat Florida. It was like, well, Tennessee's done this, but and that's a little bit sort of where we are right now when you look at the Tennessee football program is they've been in the playoff. They've beaten Florida. They've beaten Alabama, things they had not done with any consistency at all until Josh Heupel got here. And they just haven't been able to play well on the road. And I think that's where they're going to have some other opportunities to do that this year, to go on the road and win some games. They're going to have to if they want to stay in the playoff race. I've heard, Bob, people say, well, all Tennessee's got to do is hold serve the rest of the way and go 10-2, and they're going to get it. I don't know that I subscribe to that theory.
I don't.
I don't. And here's why. And I think that they would be in that conversation. I'm not saying that they wouldn't. But again, in talking to Kirby Smart last night, he said it again. This league has a bunch of teams that look a lot like each other. And I bet you when we get to the end of November and when that SEC championship game is played, there may be 5, 6, 7 teams that all look alike. Yeah. Resumes be similar. And Tennessee, to me, will be, in that group. They'll be in that group of teams that, whether they have 2 losses or 3 losses, that look a lot. And that's why playing better, playing well, getting some of these road games, because the schedule, man, you think of the schedule, what it looked like, say, in July and what it looks like now.
Yeah.
Did anybody have Vanderbilt being a top 10 team for the first time since World War II? No. Oklahoma, John Napier should be healthier. Their quarterback when Tennessee plays them. That's even though that's at home, and I think that's a big advantage for Tennessee. I think that's good. So it's a team that's Tennessee still got some chances to get some big wins, but certainly going on the road and even at Kentucky next week.
Yeah,
because they played Texas there in Lexington to overtime. Tennessee's got to play better and certainly be more consistent on the road. And I think it starts right where you started this show. And that's being cleaner, playing cleaner football, these self-inflicted wounds, missing tackles, giving up third downs, pre-snap penalties on offense. Those type of things, when you do those against good football teams, the best football teams on your schedule, you're just not going to win.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, that's the thing. This game last night, it had a lot of turns, and I felt there was a lot of opportunity, particularly in that first half, for Tennessee to seize control, get that elusive road win. But to your point, I just felt like there were too many mistakes, some suspect play calling, some odd clock management. And it's hard to isolate who was more culpable here. Was it the offense or the much maligned defense? Because the defense, I have said it before about the defense, it is the most confounding, like, boom or bust unit I've seen in a long time, because they make these explosive plays and then they go on drives where they're on the defensive side of the ball, and it's just inexplicable what I'm seeing, And you talked about missed tackles. There was that one drive that Auburn, I think it was a 99-yard drive, and Auburn, there were, I keep saying Auburn, I'm sorry, Alabama. There were 9 to 10 missed tackles by Tennessee in that drive, just that drive alone. And so, I think Alabama is a very good team. Don't get me wrong, but this is not a vintage like Nick Saban's, going to rip your face off type of team. This was a very winnable game, and it just felt like we couldn't get out of our own way sometimes. And it just feels like we repeat that pattern a lot. As a matter of fact, Chris, the Vols, they had more total yards on offense than Alabama. They had more first downs than Alabama, but they also had more penalties. They had 10 to be exact. I thought the offensive line maybe had their worst game of the season. They allowed a season high 4 sacks. I mean, it just was kind of a culmination of all these types of things. And we also didn't win the turnover game. We know Alabama's good at taking care of the ball. They had 1 turnover. We had 2, but boy, the one that ended the first half, that was a kill shot for us.
You got to learn how to win on the road. And, Tennessee did that against Mississippi State. Now, Mississippi State's not Alabama. And you sort of hope, if you're a Tennessee fan coming out of that game, okay, yeah, this is not a top 25 team. It's not Bama. It's not Georgia. It's not Florida. But you still found a way to win in overtime. Now looking back at that game, looking back at the Florida game when Tennessee had a chance to finish Georgia and didn't at home, maybe those were things that were sort of an omen for what to come. Because if you don't have that interception right before half, which was a killer, you're talking about plays that change the complexion of the game.
Right.
You're not going to see one that does that any more so than that one did. But, Tennessee's right in that game. You go into halftime and you got a great chance to win the game. What, 2 years ago? Very similar. Tennessee goes into halftime. They're up 10, I think, or they're up.
Yeah, they were up 10 and a half. That's right, in 23.
Second half completely belongs to Alabama. And that's not just this team, but when you start about the program, they got to learn how to finish those kind of games on the road to be the better, more physical, more disciplined team in the second half. And going back to some of the things that you just discussed, that is, has continued to haunt Tennessee in these type of games. I don't think I'm not one of those who's want to say, well, this is sort of who Tennessee is this year. No, I think they can get better.
Yeah,
they're going to have to get better. I think they can get better and put it all together. These next 2 games, you got one on the road against Kentucky, then Oklahoma comes to Knoxville. I think really sets the stage for the rest of the season for Tennessee about what kind of year this can be. Because I think if you would have told any Tennessee fan going into the expanded playoff, last year was the first year, if you'd have told any Tennessee fan, all right, you're going to be in the playoff the first 2 years of its existence, I think anybody would have taken that. Anybody.
Yeah.
No matter what happened on the road in this game or that game. So I think that's where, when you look at people say, what is realistic expectation? Then I think that's it, is to get better, to play some cleaner football, Bob, and to play their best ball here in these last 5 or 6 games and claw your way into the playoff.
Yeah. No, I agree. So this loss, it's costly in a number of ways. With the loss, the Vols dropped 6 spots on both the AP and the coaches poll, the latest one that just got released. They dropped to 17th on both polls. And it underscores what you were just saying, Chris. Again, they are one of 10 SEC teams ranked in that AP top 25. 3 are top 5 teams now from the SEC. A&M, Alabama, and Georgia are ranked 3, 4, and 5. And then there's 2 more to comprise the top 10 in Ole Miss and Vandy, who cracks the top 10 at number 10. So it's all those teams like Kirby was saying to you that look alike, when you look at the resumes and everything. That's what it's going to come down to. So in summary, I think that the team is really at a crossroads, right? 5-2 with 5 games left. We talk about it feels like the only way forward now to have a shot at the college football playoffs is to win out. And even if that happens, it's not a guarantee. But boy, it sure, after what I saw last night, it feels a little more daunting than it once did. So what's our confidence level in this team to go 5-0 or even 4-1 at this point in the final 5 games? I mean, for me, I can't believe that I'm saying that there's a possibility that game against Vanderbilt to close the regular season out could be essentially a play-in game for the college football playoff.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't be floored at all to see that happen. Now Vandy's still got some work to do to make that happen.
Sure.
So does Tennessee. Vandy's only got the 1 loss to get Missouri and national game day going to national. Bob, you definitely. I remember we didn't really know each other 5, 7, 8 years ago, but you would have predicted then that Vandy would be in the top 10, that game day would be coming to Vandy.
Yeah.
That Indiana would be number 2. That Ole Miss would be ranked in the top 10. Boy, the sport's changed, man. It has really changed before our very eyes.
I think Georgia Tech's 11. They're right on the
Tech,
cusp.
yeah. So you got 4 teams: Tech, Ole Miss, Indiana, Vandy, that are 4 of your top 10 or 4 of your top 11 teams in college football. Remember when the SEC was in that run of 7 straight national titles?
Yeah,
mostly Georgia, mostly Alabama. LSU mixed in there in 2019. Imagine during that time frame telling someone we're not too far off from having a top 10 that's got Tech, Vandy, Indiana, and Ole Miss in it.
That's now it blows my mind when I think about that. It really does. It really does. I don't know.
But the ranking, I don't think the rankings are fun. I'm like you. We all like to. I participate in our own rankings at On 3. I think it's all still out there in front of Tennessee. I really do. And it's, it's just cleaning it up. 19 penalties in the last 2 ball games.
Yeah.
That has a way of catching up with you.
It does. And listen, I had to host a post-game show last night on the local station here. And, the fan base, as you can imagine, was apoplectic, right? And, there's a lot of
Tennessee's fan base?
Yeah, never, right? Never.
Oh, I have a hard time believing that.
No, but, there was a lot of talk of, is Josh Heupel the guy and everything else? And I wanted to be clear. It's like I am frustrated, and I don't want to see. I'm not talking about Josh Heupel being replaced, but I do worry that we're getting to year 5 and are we plateauing? And so the only way you get over that hump is like what you just said, Chris, is got to clean up some of these other things, win the road games, win the meaningful road games, those types of things. That's the next phase. And he's the guy who I believe can get us there. But man, it has gotten very, very frustrating. And I'm sure it's frustrating to him too. I know that. So, but yeah, last night was interesting, just hearing all that, because everybody's quick to react, myself included. Sometimes I was certainly one that was frustrated watching that game last night.
Well, listen, all fan bases think they can do better.
Yeah.
And sometimes you got to be careful. It's going to be interesting to see what happens at Penn State.
Right.
Over the next few years. Florida firing Billy Napier today. Now, that's a little bit different. Napier only had 1 winning season at a place, Florida, that is still, in my mind, one of the Taj Mahals of college football. There's no reason you should not be able to win there every year.
Right.
At an elite level. But you're seeing Mike Norvell's in trouble, deep trouble at Florida State after they lose to Stanford. And they were horrible last year. They haven't won an ACC game this year. And yet you explain this to me. They beat Alabama.
Beat them like a drum.
Yeah. And so fan bases need to be careful. Josh Heupel, I've said it repeatedly, the thing he's done here more than anything else is he's gotten Tennessee back to national relevance. Tennessee is a nationally relevant football program. The next step oftentimes, Bob, is the hardest. Deep runs in the playoff, winning big games on the road. Look at what Georgia did. Georgia comes in Knoxville and wins in overtime. Alabama goes into Georgia this year, wins in Sanford Stadium. those are the kind of wins I think when they get them, when Tennessee gets them, will signal, all right, this program has made the next step.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can just speak. I won't go in too much detail because that'll bore everybody. But my previous life, right, and experience and business and everything else, sometimes it's getting over that hump initially that's the easiest part. And that's not to say what Josh did was easy, but it's easier than what is the next phase now is trying to grow that success and not just kind of stagnate at a certain area. So you're right. I mean, that's the hard part still lies ahead. And that's the one thing I think we have to keep in mind, certainly.
Hey, I think we got a special guest. When I say special, I mean really special. Special dude, special baseball player, Chris Burke, VFL, UT Hall of Famer, played the major leagues for – how long did you play in Major League Ball, Chris?
Parts of 6 seasons.
We
What's
really
up, guys?
we appreciate you being with us. And
Yeah.
I know we talked numerous times when the news came out about Tony and the Giants. I wasn't shocked because we heard it for a couple of weeks. I didn't know where he was in their pecking order, but I knew there were some serious conversations taking place. I guess the first question for you, Chris, is where do you think, as you look at what he's done with the program and the way he's just completely revolutionized Tennessee baseball, what kind of jolt would this be to the program to lose him?
Man, it's funny you asked. I was talking to my wife about it yesterday. I just think Tony's irreplaceable. Now, that doesn't mean Tennessee baseball still can't perform at a high level. I just think the personality, the charisma, the presence of Tony Vitello it's a very unique character in sports. So, from a parallel standpoint, I try not to be hyperbolic, but I don't think Urban Meyer was amazing at Florida, but he never replaced Steve Spurrier. You know what I mean? Like there are coaches that can have a high level of success and maybe even win at a similar clip. But I think Tony is just such a unique presence. And I think to a degree, it's a very fragile time from the university standpoint because you have a $100 million stadium renovation that isn't complete, and that I applaud the university immensely for taking the investment in the program that they have. And I think they've set the facility up to where if they continue to win and sell it out at the clip they've been doing with the additional seats and high dollar seats, it's probably an opportunity where the baseball program could really make money, which would be fantastic. But I can't help but to think that, Tony's presence is a big part of that. It just is. Like you can argue that it's really the games he's won. Okay, but I would say it's a lot more than that. So, I'll be honest with you. I've been hoping that he would stay I take my ESPN analyst hat off and just be alumni Tennessee baseball player. I hope he stays. Really, even from my analyst hat, from a college baseball standpoint, he's so good for the sport and so fun, and his teams are so fun. So it feels like today being no news is good news. It feels like. So I guess we'll just have to see. But again, that doesn't mean Tennessee baseball can't win at a high level without Tony. But I don't think Tony and everything he brings to the table, I don't think you can replace him. I don't.
Yeah. Talking with Chris Burke, who he mentioned ESPN, does an unbelievable job, the SEC Network, ESPN. And we're proud of you, man. Way to represent.
Thanks.
At University, Chris. You mentioned Tony, and as this drags on, Tony was at practice today. And let me get your take on this as a former player. He was at practice, business as usual, a couple hour practice, through hit with the guys like he always does. Tony's very you ever been to a Tennessee practice, he's very involved. He doesn't just
Very
stand.
involved.
He didn't just stand over the dugout. I mean, he's
No.
right in the middle of it.
Yep.
Same deal today. He didn't talk about any of this to players. Now, he did yesterday and said, hey, listen, guys, they're going to hear some reports out there about me. Don't believe everything you read. If I'm going anywhere, if I'm leaving here, you guys will be the first to know. He didn't tell me. There's other reports that he told him he was leaving, that he flew to San Francisco, was going to San Francisco to finalize the deal. That's not true. So from a player, you put yourself in the player's position right now, Chris. What are you thinking right now? You come back to practice after all this is out there. He's sort of who he is during practice. It's dragged on now, a little bit more than a day. What's sort of going through your mind at this point?
Well, if you really make me think as a player, the beautiful naivete of being a 19 to 23-year-old, they're probably just going, well, if he's here, I guess he's still our coach.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the simplest viewpoint is right. Like it does feel like we've had 24 hours, I don't know, maybe even like 28 hours since it really got what's the right word? Intense with Tony in this deal. And I think now going in my analyst mode, it feels like if it was so close to happening 28 hours ago that all those reports, and most of them being high-level major league insiders, are reporting that, and it's not finalized, that would, if I, again, kind of wearing both hats, it would make me think that maybe it's not going to happen. Because you'd think again, with the whole country finding out, ESPN was running on the bottom line during the Tennessee football game. So, if it's that pertinent and that imminent, why isn't it over? That's just kind of my own take. I'm not saying that's right. Maybe we find out 3 hours from now he left, but it feels like if it was going to happen, that it would have happened. That's just my take, and that's with no more inside information than you just gave.
Hey, Chris, it's great meeting you. Appreciate you hopping on. I've worked in the media business for a long time, and certainly a TV fan and a big fan of the work you do. So This is fun being able to talk. One thing I thought about when you were talking about Tony just a few minutes ago, and this is kind of applying a business end to it, is there's an adage I've always heard for, like, if you took Tennessee baseball, for example, the program itself, and it was a stock, okay?
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like, based on what you're saying, and it's my perception too, is Tony's presence in that baseball program is worth like $5 additional to that stock price, just something really incremental and big. And that is hard to duplicate. And so my question to you is, what happens next if Tony goes? I mean, is the whole concept, I think conventional wisdom is Josh Elander, and you got some great components with Josh and Frank and Ross Kivett. Do you stay the course, or does, I just think that going, and it seems the other thing you could tell me too is, given the time of year we're talking about, isn't that a little bit treacherous from the standpoint of getting ready for the next season? Yes,
I think if Tony were to leave, it would just make the most sense to either name Josh or Frank at the minimum the interim head coach, but potentially even I could see where Danny White would have enough confidence in either one of those guys to give them a runway to be the next head coach. That wouldn't surprise me either. But you talk about the stock value. I think the best comparison is Rick Pitino at Kentucky. And Tony hasn't reached out to me, and I haven't reached out to Tony. But if he were to, I would probably use the Rick Pitino analogy, which is, Pitino, I think everybody's heard that him say he should have stayed at Kentucky.
Right.
Looking back, he should have stayed at Kentucky. And heck, I think even Saban said it about leaving for the Dolphins, about LSU. Now, he ended up having a legendary career at Alabama, obviously, but I think there's Tubby Smith won the national championship the next year, but everybody would agree it wasn't the same without Pitino. There's just something different about the Pitino Kentucky basketball program than really, I mean, in my lifetime, and I live in Louisville, Kentucky, than Kentucky basketball with anybody else. Maybe Calipari the first 4 to 6 years. So that's what it feels like. Again, I'm wearing my analyst hat with Tony. And so I think, to his credit, he's set the program up in such a healthy position that if he left, and I think Josh and Frank are awesome people and tremendous baseball people, they would keep the success running of the wins. That piece of it, I don't doubt, honestly. I think both those guys are awesome. And I think there's a stability. Tony has this aura about him that lends people to think whatever they want to think about him. Look at the program. It's as stable of a athletic program. Look, what turnover has there been?
Sure.
I mean, it's like it's incredible how stable his program has been. Now, are their teams fiery? Have they had moments that have made these huge splashes? Of course they have, and that's part of what we're talking about. But part of his greatness would be that if he left, the stability of the people there and the length of time that those people have been there and the way he's empowered them to do their jobs, I don't know that the baseball operations side would feel a huge deficit, but the program and the face of the program and the energy and the recruiting side, I don't see how that's replaced.
One more question for you too, Chris, and that is because, again, we talked about it at the beginning during the intro. You played in the majors. Now you didn't manage a team, but you've been in the clubhouse, and Tony well, and what kind of force of nature he is, what kind of dynamic he can bring. And again, it's totally provisional on my part, but I'm trying to figure how that works in a major league clubhouse, just that whole aura of Tony. And from your perspective as a player, I mean, do you feel like players are going to be responsive to that? That's the one thing I can't get my arms around.
Yeah, I think Tony has a very high level of self-awareness, and I think he's really good at reading the room. Probably not fair to Pitino or Calipari, but and maybe even Saban. It does feel like, I think Tony is much more flexible in his leadership style than I think you would associate with those guys. So I honestly think Tony would be fantastic at managing a major league clubhouse. I really do. But I think his greatest strength as a winner is that he gets to pick his players. And in Major League Baseball, you don't get to pick your players. You coach the players that they give you, and you might have input, and you might have your best ideas on what the roster composition should be. But at the end of the day, you don't. And I'm not saying he literally gets every single kid he wants in recruiting, but he gets a lot. He wins more than he loses. And so I think the other piece I think that it would be interesting with Tony on the big league stage would be the job is way more monotonous and way more like one lane. And I'm probably underselling it to a degree, but I still think in general, the college game has way more moving parts. Right. And I think that really suits Tony. I think Tony loves the action. I think he loves the vibrance and the dynamic nature of being a head coach at a huge institution like the University of Tennessee. And part of me just wonders if the Groundhog Day of being a major league manager from the middle of February to, let's just say, all your dreams come true and it's the end of October, I think the groundhog nature of that wouldn't be as exciting and stimulating as the college game is to him. That's just my take. I might be totally wrong, but that's just my take.
No, I that's crossed my mind too, because I think the days of because Tony is the show in many ways, right? I mean, he's kind of the face of college baseball at the moment too. I mean, he's on the MLB network for the draft and everything else. And I sit there and I think about it. I'm watching the ALCS, and it's like I have never heard of the manager of the Toronto Blue Jays, right? And
Yeah.
there's a lot of that now, and that doesn't mean those guys aren't very capable and skilled at what they do, but they're not the show in Major League Baseball. It's about
No.
the players, and
No.
that's very different too. And I'm guessing Tony's kind of mulling all of that in his mind too.
Well, and you're also currently third fiddle in your own division.
Yeah.
The Dodgers, you know, if you want to call Tennessee the Dodgers or LSU the Dodgers, 1A and 1B. Tony would be leaving being the Dodgers of college baseball to being more in the upper middle class of Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's different. Also, we all know this about pro sports. The players hold the juice. And Buster Posey has the juice. And so for Tony to go from being at a place where he has a lot of the juice to not nearly as much of it, let's just say that would be different. It just would be.
Yeah. Hey, Chris Lowe, I want to ask one more question and I'm going to shut up. But I'm a Dodgers fan, grew up a Dodgers fan, and I do, getting it from a former player's perspective, what we saw the other night from Shohei Ohtani, was that as epic as everybody is framing it to be?
Yeah, I compared it to, I'll say Peyton Manning because that's who I die with. But it'd be the equivalent of playing like Peyton Manning on offense and then Ray Lewis on defense. Like, you know, people try to use basketball analogies, and I don't think that works because everybody plays both ends of the court in basketball. You have to use almost football for it to make sense because nobody does both.
Yeah.
And so, and then nobody does both at that high of a level. So imagine a football game where you had Peyton Manning, the quarterback, and then Ray Lewis, the middle linebacker. That's what, and then imagine it to go to the Super Bowl. That's what Shohei Ohtani just did. It's never been seen before.
Yeah.
Simple as you can put it.
Yeah, you couldn't use a basketball analogy, Chris, because nobody plays defense in the NBA.
But let's say Michael
that's the
Jordan
real
scored
reason you didn't use
60
basketball
points.
analogy.
If somebody said it's like when Jordan scored 60 points in the playoffs, I'm like, well, only if he had like 20 blocks and 20 rebounds, then maybe.
Right. Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, man, it's great. I love your analogy about picking players. What was it, Parcells that said that, you know, if you're going to bake the cake, you want to be able to buy the groceries. You're going to bake the dinner.
Yeah.
And that is sort of the way it is in pro sports. And some guys prosper, some guys don't. And Tony's been the guy that's handpicked guys. And I think his strength, you sort of touched on this, is bringing out a player's greatest or best competitive spirit. And he's done that over. I mean, I think of guys like Trey Lipscomb, who've done very little until Tony got there or until later in his career. But Tony was able to bring him up to an all-SEC, all-America type player. And there are a lot of those examples over the last few years at Tennessee. So that's where I think he is at his best. And we'll find out. We'll see, I think, here the next day. He's not going to let this thing drag on. And hopefully he and Danny White, if they haven't already talked, and I don't know that they have, can sit down. I think there's a chance that the Chancellor, Donnie Plowman, may get involved and maybe work something out. We'll find out. But either way, it's a testament to him. And I think it's a testament to where Tennessee baseball is right now.
Yeah. No,
so
incredibly flattering to the university and to Tony that somebody is highly regarded as the San Francisco Giants want to hire him. And I think the last thing I would say as far as the difference is, and people ask me about this all the time, and I say it, like the Southeastern Conference, you get 30 conference games. So it's essentially when you manage head coach an SEC program, especially one that's the only goal or the only acceptable result is to host a regional at a minimum. Every game you play is like September 1st and on for Major League Baseball. And I think that would be very different for Tony to have that the length and the 162 games, and doesn't matter whether you're playing the Brewers or you're playing the Blue Jays or you're playing the Dodgers, they all kind of count the same. That's just not the way SEC college baseball is. So that would be a big adjustment. And it would be interesting. It would be interesting to see. And one thing that I don't think I'm giving enough credence to is the thought of being the first. It's a big deal. Like for Tony to say he's been the first one to ever do it in the history of college baseball. So I feel like I'm underselling that. And if he chooses to do it, I get it. But I still think what he's doing right now, he's best suited for. So like you said, Chris, I think we'll find out sooner as opposed to later. So it'll be interesting.
Chris Burke, or his colleagues on ESPN like to refer to him, Burkey. Does Kyle Peterson really cheat as much in golf as I hear he does?
He actually doesn't cheat at all. And I wish I could tell you he cheats because it would make me feel better. But he actually doesn't cheat at all. It's kind of sickening. So
well, we really enjoy your work, Chris, on the ESPN SEC Network, and we appreciate your time. I got to say, Bob, before we get him out of here, man, Chris was a heck of an athlete. Hoops, baseball. He's got some younger Burks coming. Just remember that, all right? You've got some younger Burks coming up through the ranks. So whether it's hoops or basketball or excuse me, baseball or football, remember that last name, Burke. That's all I'm going to say.
We'll see. Thanks, guys. Pleasure being on with you.
Thank you, Chris.
Take care.
Thank you, bud. So Chris Burke there with great stuff. And Chris he was a phenomenal baseball player, Hall of Famer, played at the highest level. But, man, he is so good on air explaining the game.
Yeah.
He's energetic. It's exciting when he does it, but he just knows the game. And I find myself and I've known Chris a long time. Okay. Full disclosure, we're buddies. But when I listen to him, and I've had a vested interest in Tennessee baseball over the years with a son who's on the staff, but I learned something Bob knew about the game, or maybe some nuance to the game, when I listened to him and his color commentary just about every time he's on the air.
I love when he gets paired with, because it happens mostly during the regular season, less in the postseason, when he gets paired with Tom Hart. I just think
Tom's great too. Yeah.
Fantastic stuff. So yeah, I'm a big fan. That was a real treat getting to hear from him and hearing his perspective. Again, a guy who's been in a clubhouse and all of those things. I just think I'm just sitting here trying to, like I said, get my arms around what Tony must be weighing right now in his decision process, because it's not all about dollars. There's no way it is. It's about all the other variables. So that was it was fun. Hopefully we're talking about this next week and we're talking about Tony staying. Time will tell. But let's jump back.
Who's not staying? You know who's not staying? Billy Napier in Florida.
I was just going to say, so let's go around the world of college football, because this past weekend, first off, 4 teams in the top 10 go down. 9 teams in the top 25 go down. They all go down to defeat. It leaves the jockeying for the college football playoff spots more wide open than ever. We've been talking about it. That's my whole point, is Tennessee is going to be in kind of this gen pop scenario with all these other deserving schools. But it's also become, as you just said, a wide open job market if you're a head coach. I mean, it is crazy now how many high profile jobs are available on the heels of what we heard today about Billy Napier.
Yeah. And I say that about Billy not being there. You haven't got to know Billy pretty well over the years. You like to see guys like that make it, one of the good guys and a guy that treats people the right way. And Billy has said it many times in the last year or two. It's a bottom line business. And we're at Florida. You got to win. He just didn't win enough. And
that's it.
We're going to see now. This will be Scott Strickland, their AD's third hire, his third football hire. Bob, 3 strikes and you're out. Who they bring in there. There's no question in my mind that right at the top of the list is Lane Kiffin. And I think the question is, would he leave Ole Miss? He's got a really good thing going there. It's a place he's been very outspoken that he feels like over and above football has been exactly what he needed there in Oxford. His lifestyle, the way he sees the world now, families all around him. I spent part of last Thursday with him. I don't know that it's just 1,000% that he would leave. That said, I know for a fact too that he would consider it. It's Florida. It's a place where it's got a good roster. You can add to that roster. There's quarterbacks galore, and with his track record offensively, that would be lining up to play for him at a place like Florida. And it's got resources. It's got the recruiting pool. And here's the key: you're coming in, and we saw what Kalen DeBoer had to follow with Nick Saban at Alabama. We've seen this sometimes in hoops, but you're coming in to a true blue blood that hasn't been having success.
Right.
So you're not having to sustain anything, Bob. You're building building it back. And I think if you talk to any coach, that's the challenge that they seek more than the other one, trying to come in at a place that won a bunch of titles in the last 10 years, the last 15 years, and then try to sort of sustain that and work in the shadow of a guy like a Nick Saban. That's not going to be the case for the next Florida head football coach, which is a reason I think Kiffin is probably the most likely candidate.
Yeah, it's so funny because that game on Saturday between Ole Miss and Georgia was as good as advertised. I mean, it was an amazing game, and Ole Miss, if that was a 3.5 quarter or 3-quarter game, Ole Miss would have taken home the win. But he loses that game, and that's the beauty and the charm of the Ole Miss job. You don't hear any hell being raised by the fan base or anything, right? It's because he's done a good job advancing that program, and that's a job you could have for life there, I think. And you're right. I saw the documentary on ESPN too about Lane and what it's meant to his, he definitely, you can just tell in interviews and everything else, he's a different guy than who we saw years ago. Right. And people mature. And, so I think those are all factors, but that Florida job is very, very attractive when you think about a coach like him too. And I have no doubt that they'll come calling. You might not have seen it because you were working. James Franklin did his interview on College Game Day, and it's very, very clear that he's ready to go. He's like taking a breath, and he wants to get back out there and coach. And I think he's going to be getting calls as well. Yeah,
that was his first job interview, Bob. His game day.
Yeah,
being facetious. His game day interview.
Yeah, he was polished.
And, I had talked to James too. He very much wants to coach again.
Yeah.
And I think he's got a lot left in the tank. I understand that the Penn State fans said, "Hey, he was there for 12 years. He didn't beat anybody. We lost to Ohio State every year. He never won a national championship." Those are all facts. But I think you also got to look at where the program was when he got there. It was not in good shape. Bill O'Brien had done a lot of heavy lifting after the Paterno stuff.
Right.
But James came in and took him to being a top 10 program for just about certainly his last decade. I think 5 of the last 9 years or something like that. And you don't forget how to coach overnight. The guy won 9 games in back-to-back years at Vandy. I mean, go back and look at how many times that's happened.
Yeah.
I'll give you a clue, 0 before he did it. So there'll be teams that will be lining up to get him, and he'll have probably his choice, and will probably be pretty picky about where he goes.
Yeah.
Something happens with Lane at Florida, I could certainly see him there. I think you're going to see, again, a lot of schools, and there's going to be other jobs coming open. I mean, it's really tenuous at Auburn right now, tenuous at Florida State. There's a lot of schools, Wisconsin and Luke Fickell. So he's going to have, James will have the luxury to sort of sit back and see, what fits him best. And I guarantee you, when we're talking in late November on this show, we're going to go back and say, wow, can you believe this job opened? I mean, so there'll be, I bet you there's one, whether it's per the domino effect, Bob, or whatever, there's one that we haven't even thought about that's going to open. It'll be a surprise. Maybe somebody retires like Saban did 2 years ago. There will be something like that.
Yeah, and it's crazy. We were just rattling off all these schools. Another one that's in the Big Ten that I've heard is very possibly going to be open is Michigan State.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Jonathan Smith hasn't even completed his second year there, but they're already talking about, hey, this isn't working. And I guess that's just the nature of it right now, right? I mean, you go all the way back to, Gene Chizik winning a national title and what he was fired, not the next season, but the season after that, right? I mean, it's
Ogeron too. Same with Ogeron.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So,
hey, patience. Remember when your kids were little?
Yeah.
And you said, hey, we're gonna go swimming at the pool today.
Mhm.
You told them we're gonna go at noon, right? And they start at 7:30 in the morning. Hey, Dad, when are we going to the pool? When are we going to the pool? Guys, be patient. We're gonna go.
Yeah.
Sort of like that with college football fans. There is no patience, and especially with the money at play, the money that coaches are making now, the money that can be generated in college sports. And I don't want to beat up on the fans because let's be honest, how much it costs now, Bob, to go watch a college football game.
Yeah. One school we didn't even talk about is what could happen at LSU. That's another one. I mean, that's a big job too. Big job.
Won't be a fun week on the Bayou.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's look ahead to next week because, for the Vols, Kentucky at Kroger Field awaits Tennessee, depending upon what book you look at, is an 8.5 to 9.5 point favorite. And you and I talked on the phone a little earlier today. I mean, Kentucky took Texas to overtime Saturday night, lost the game, but it doesn't feel like Kentucky's mailing it in. There's a lot of chatter about Stoops maybe stepping down and all those rumors, but it feels like Kentucky's still playing, and they will definitely play against Tennessee.
Yeah. So, Mark's a Youngstown, Ohio guy. He likes to talk about Youngstown stuff, and his teams have typically taken on that persona. They have not been as good the last few years. I think everybody knows that, but he has done some good work there. Again, people talk about, well, he hadn't done this or he hadn't done that. He hadn't beaten Tennessee, which he hasn't. But how many Kentucky coaches over the years have beaten Tennessee?
Yeah.
But you look at where the program was and what he did, multiple 10-win seasons. He's done a lot of good work. And I do agree with you that Kentucky will play really, really tough and really physical. Now that's a heartbreaking loss to come off of, to lose to Texas. But you look at some of their home games this year, they played Ole Miss really tough.
Yep.
Up there in Lexington. So I don't think, even though Tennessee has had Kentucky's number, and that's probably putting it mildly, they've dominated this series. I don't think you just waltz in there and think you're going to win. You don't want this to get into the second half where you're giving them short fields and you're making penalties and you're, second and 15. You don't want it to become that kind of football game, Bob. You want to get up, because this is certainly not their strength, and make them play from behind.
Yeah. Another big weekend besides our game, as far as what's happening around the SEC, you could argue this is kind of playoff elimination round for a few teams already. We have a bunch of ranked versus ranked teams going head to head. You got Ole Miss, number 8 in the country, going to number 13 Oklahoma. You've got number 15 Mizzou traveling to Nashville against number 10 Vanderbilt. College game day is going to be there. Number 3 Texas A&M at number 20 LSU, who we mentioned a moment ago. Alabama is going to South Carolina, which at one point at the beginning of the season would have looked like a big matchup, but South Carolina is struggling to find themselves. Georgia's idle this week, as is Florida. But boy, there's going to be a lot of story to be told coming up in this next weekend.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how Ole Miss bounces back against an Oklahoma team that Napier should be getting healthier now.
Yeah,
that's a game. If Ole Miss is going to be a playoff team, that just sort of seems to me when they need to win.
Yeah,
Ole Miss is they were unbeaten going into Georgia, but they haven't won what I would call. LSU. I don't want to diss the LSU win, but they haven't had what I would call the most difficult schedule. And so we're going to see that going forward, which makes what Alabama's done all the more impressive. The first team ever, which is a long word, in the SEC to win 4 straight games in 4 straight weeks against ranked teams.
Yeah.
And Bob, I go back to what I said earlier, and they lost to FSU, a bad FSU team.
Right.
Maybe that whole scenario if you just sort of laid that out to somebody who just dropped in from Mars about what this season's been like, maybe that's it. The Alabama is one of the best teams in the country right now, at least playing that way. And oh yeah, they lost to a Florida State team who's yet to scratch in the ACC.
It's going to be a good one, man. There's a lot that's going to unfold this week, whether it's football, whether it's college baseball that hits home with us. We'll be watching closely. As for everybody checking us out, we appreciate you watching and listening. We'll be back next week with another edition of the RTI Lowdown as we recap the Vols business trip to Lexington, look ahead to an epic November 1st battle here in Knoxville with Oklahoma, and also, time permitting, maybe talk a little basketball because Rick Barnes and the boys get ready a week from Sunday, week from tonight while we're taping this, to play Duke in an exhibition, which is going to be fantastic. So a lot to cover. We appreciate you coming along for the ride. Make sure you like and subscribe the show on YouTube, the Rocky Top Insider channel, and download our podcast wherever you listen to your pods. Chris, enjoyed it as always, man. Appreciate you hopping on with me.
Yeah, same here, man. Thanks to Chris Burke for being the star of the show tonight. But it's always good. Always look forward to Sunday nights, Bob.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And appreciate you in the listener world and viewer world being a part of the show as well. We hope you have a great week ahead, and we'll see you the next time on the RTI Lowdown.